Welcome to our video on morphological awareness, or a focus on meaning in the classroom. We will briefly describe morphological awareness and some of the evidence-based support for teaching it in the classroom. We will also provide you with 2 lesson plans that you can use in your teaching. We're going to start with a brief description of English morphemes. A morpheme is a meaningful unit of language that cannot be further divided. In English, we have bound morphemes, which need to be attached to something else. They cannot stand alone. They can be seen as an affix to a word. Affixes are morphemes that are added to the beginning or the end of words. Affixes can be derivational or they can be inflectional. Derivational morphemes change the word's class, like adding the suffix er to teach changes it from the verb teach to the noun teacher. By contrast, inflectional morphemes change the form of words in order to express grammar. For example, adding ing to the word walk changes it to walking, a different grammatical form. Bound morphemes can also be seen as the root of a word. For example, fur is the root for the word infer. Next, we have free morphemes. These can stand alone and have meaning. They can be further divided into open class and closed class morphemes. Open class morphemes are words like nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. Closed class morphemes are words like conjunctions, prepositions, pronouns, and auxiliary verbs.
Research tells us that the development of morphological skills is best achieved with explicit teaching. When taught, morphological awareness improves vocabulary and reading achievement. It can also help with the spelling and pronunciation of words. Further, some students will not develop morphological awareness skills as easily as other students. It is suggested that these students may benefit from explicit teaching. But what about the rest of the class? Spelling and reading improvements have also been observed in typically developing students as a result of morphological awareness instruction. Taken together, research indicates morphological awareness instruction benefits the whole class. However, Nunes and Bryant note that despite the documented importance of morphological awareness, it is not routinely or explicitly taught in the classroom. Phonological awareness, on the other hand, is now commonly incorporated into classroom activities, although this was not always the case. Thanks to many years of research, its role in language and literacy is now well known. We must not, however, forget the importance of morphological awareness. Mann and Sinkson explain that by the age of 10, morphological awareness is a better predictor of decoding ability than phonological awareness.
Let's take a look at possible ways to begin introducing morphological awareness into the classroom. Start by providing a rationale for studying word parts. You could say, we're going to be learning all about words. Words sometimes have different parts. We're going to learn about these word parts. This will help us with reading, spelling, and learning new words. This section should be quick. Next, introduce some of the important terms. This can be done with the students sitting at the carpet or at their desks. Start by introducing base words or root words that are not bound. Be sure to provide many examples and use child-friendly language. Have students point out which part is the base word. In our examples, all of it. After introducing base words, introduce affixes by saying something like, sometimes we have word parts that are added onto the start of base words. We call these word parts a prefix. Using the words you've already written down or using new words, add on the prefix one example at a time. Using your previous examples will allow them to see how base words can be changed by word parts. When providing examples, allow students the opportunity to identify the target affix as a group and individually as appropriate. Do the same thing for suffixes. When possible, use visuals to help with understanding and make an attempt to use curriculum-related vocabulary in the examples. Once students are able to identify affixes appropriately, move on. After the class activity, introduce the idea of word detectives. Research has shown that using a problem-solving approach can be very important for ensuring transfer of skills to other tasks. You could introduce this idea by saying something like, each of you have been such good word detectives. You found all of the word parts. Now we are going to work in small groups to investigate some words. Really emphasize the idea of the students being detectives to get them excited about the tasks. Carry this detective theme through to other lessons and activities to maintain motivation. Now is the time when you could introduce a small group activity. A sorting activity would be helpful at this stage to help increase awareness of affixes. Provide each group with words on cue cards that they need to sort into 3 groups. Use words that the children haven't seen yet to provide a wider variety of examples. Circulate around the room, helping them investigate the words as required. If the sorting is going really well, have them practice identifying the base word and affix in the sorted words.
Our next lesson plan will focus on teaching inflectional morphemes. Research indicates that inflectional morphology should be taught before derivational morphology as it is earlier developing. This lesson plan can be used with students as young as grade 1. We will be targeting 3 inflectional morphemes in this lesson, but please note that you do not have to target all of these in one day. You could target 1 morpheme per day or even across multiple days. For example, you could host a plural S day. Let's get started with the morpheme plural S, which means that there are more than one. Here are some sample words. Picture supports can be used for younger students who are still mastering the decoding stage of reading. First, introduce the morpheme. Tell students what it means when you add the S to the end of the word. As you move through the words, explain what they mean with the added S. Check student comprehension. Ask them, what does it mean when we add S to cat? Or, what's the difference between book and books? Point out that sometimes the S ending sounds like S, and sometimes it sounds like Z, as in cats versus dogs. You can also incorporate phonological awareness into the activity. Have children guess the word you're saying by its segmented parts. For example, say, I'm going to give you 2 parts of a word and you have to guess what I'm saying. Cat. Good, the word is cats. Next, introduce the morpheme ed, which means that it happened in the past. Here are some sample words. Remember that picture supports are encouraged for younger students. Introduce the morpheme ed and explain what it means. Then move through the words and explain what they mean with the morpheme added to them. Ask students, what does it mean when we add ed at the end of jump? Again, point out the difference in the way this ending may sound. Sometimes it sounds like t, whereas other times it sounds like d, as in laughed versus played. Prompt students to tell you when they're hearing this difference. Lastly, incorporate phonological awareness. Provide a segmented form of the word, such as talk, t, and have the students tell you what the word is. For a challenge, have students segment words into their onset and rhyme. Say, tell me the 2 parts of the word played. Good, its parts are play and d. And lastly, introduce the morpheme ing, which means that something is still going on. Here are some sample words. Work through the words and explain what they mean with the added ing. You can have the base words pre-written on the chalkboard or whiteboard and progressively add the ing endings as you go through them. Don't forget to assess students' comprehension. Distinguish between the word's meaning with the ending added and without the ending added. Then have students blend words that you've segmented. You can also have students tell you the 2 parts of a word. For example, tell me the 2 parts of the word walking. That's right, walk and ing. Please note that we've included only regularly spelled words as this activity is introductory. In later grades, you can focus on the spelling changes that result from adding ing to irregularly spelled words. Once all of these morphemes have been taught, you can conduct a Bring It Together activity. An example of this is a word sort activity. Provide all of the sample words we just reviewed on cards. Ask students to sort all of the words in piles based on their endings. Once complete, ask students why they sorted the words the way they did. Ask students about the meanings of certain words in the pile. For example, what happens when we add ing to talking? It means it's still going on.
You're probably wondering what comes next. Teach the remainder of the inflectional morphemes with lots of examples and practice. Next, introduce derivational morphemes. Remember that inflectional morphemes are not mastered before children start learning derivational morphemes. Consider some of the other possible activities, such as word relatives. As the students begin to become comfortable with the tasks, work toward generating novel words and providing meaning of these words. Integrate morphological awareness examples into other class activities. For example, point out morphologically complex words when you come across them. Have them apply their detective skills to other activities such as reading. Keep in mind that morphological development continues into adulthood and that you are working to help them to develop a good base knowledge to set the foundation for future learning. For more on morphological awareness, take a look at the accompanying pamphlet, which has additional information, including a list of references. Thank you.